Hello and welcome to the Analog Toys live stream, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by my friend Michael French from RetroBlasting. How are you, Michael?
Good. How are you? Are you awake? Are you lucid?
Oh yeah, no, I'm awake, but Grace's first day back at work this morning, and one of those days couldn't find the car keys. Then I came in here and couldn't figure out why my camera wasn't working because it's plugged into the computer, but the cable at the other end wasn't plugged into the camera. I'm like, oh, what's And I thought it was all good because I still had it set up yesterday from when I was on your Patreon stream. So I don't even know why that got unplugged, but there you go. Yeah,
I had to reset the whole thing. We went into total deconstruction mode yesterday, and so even though we had just gotten off the stream with you, Tim looked up at me about 20 minutes later and goes, "I just totally tore down everything," and I'm like, "It's fine. I got to do a new shot anyway, so it's all good." Yeah.
Oh, and he's forgetting parcels and stuff.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Forgetting parcels. Yeah, it was a whole day of it. It was, but
yeah,
we're caught up, so it's good.
You need to put him on a performance improvement plan or something. Do you have those at RetroBlasting?
Not at RetroBlasting. We are very anti-corporate here, so we throw people in dungeons and oubliettes instead. It's far more effective a way to keep people in line. So, back to basics.
So we were chatting a little bit yesterday about the topic of robots, and I really didn't want to confuse anyone too much. I thought I've only got 2 Transformers in the collection. I have to put them up here or people will get really upset. What I really wanted to talk about today are like robot action figures that appear in action figure lines that aren't all robots, like GoBots or Transformers. You know, so we have things like the Cobra Bat and Roboto, which for the life of me, I own one and I can't find him. It was a bit like you looking for the Deadpool dumbbell the other week. I was having a day like that yesterday.
I've got the Origins one laying. I've got the original, but it doesn't stand up because those stupid leg bands. And we've had him since childhood. But I've got the Origins one right there. If you want me to grab him and put him on the table, he looks great.
Yeah. Let's take a look.
All right, you tell everybody a dirty limerick or something. He's right over there, and then I'll
we have a super chat here from A World Made from Cardboard. Thank you very much. He says, your tables look great. Good robot representation. Thank you. What I'll do, I'll show you the single layout here for my table. So I've got a few other things kind of down the side here that I'll show you a little bit later on. Obviously, I don't have all of the Star Wars droids here. I have a representation of them. We have Faker. We've got a couple of the Action Force robots. And then Maskatron, who's probably my favorite action figure robot. And Rom the Space Knight, who I believe may be a cyborg.
All right, and I am back. So,
that was good timing. I just had a super chat about the table, so I wanted to share your table there. So I know we've got a few cyborgs in there. We'll be a little bit relaxed with the rules around this.
Well, I only brought in the cyborgs because at the time I was putting the table together, I was very cognizant of that possible rule, but I wasn't sure what the guidelines were for the Analog Toys stream. So I was like, well, I don't want people to be like, you forgot the Daleks, you know, and I'm like, so I'll just throw that stuff in there and then we can just disqualify it, you know, midstream and just be like, it just makes the table look good. So, like, yes, I do have a Cyberman, technically a human being turned into a robot. Brainiac, hard to say. I think he's an AI, not sure. We've got the Dalek here. Obviously, that's a mecha suit for an alien, not technically a robot, but a lot of people don't know that. And then RoboCop. And then, you know, a lot of people don't know that the GoBots are actually robots with human brains. So, yeah,
I didn't know that.
One of those, because, you know, when you hear phrases like GoBots, you think robot. Melinda has just appeared. I guess she's not happy with my she says my head is wrong. So but as far as my rundown here, did you want me to point out everything real quick on the table, Tony, before we get started, or
what I'll do, I've got a couple of super chats we'll read first.
Okay.
And so from Scott Newton, he says, Rom, fantastic comic, but mediocre toy. I hate when companies put out a single toy like that with no one to interact with, especially when it's out of scale with nearly every other toy on the shelves.
Yeah.
And Scott, I really agree with that. I've often toyed with the idea of doing a live stream about one-off action figures like the 12-inch Bandai Inspector Gadget, ROM, things like that. And we have a super chat here from Laser Pants. He says, "Hi guys, Michael. I'm listening on my phone and I just put it in my back pocket."
Perfect. That means I'm now talking out your arse. That's right.
So please give us a rundown of your table there.
Okay, so I'm gonna do my best here. Okay, so Melinda's gonna zoom in for me. She came down here as a camera perfectionist, but she's gonna zoom in real quick. She apologizes for nothing, by the way, in case you didn't hear that. By the way, Melinda, Nick says here in the comments, I've just stolen one of my son's wagon wheels, which is like a British moon pie. And then he says, I blame Melinda, just letting you know. Okay, so on this side, we have the Dalek from Doctor Who, the two GoBots, Leader 1 and Psykill right here. We have Alpha, I want to say his name's Alpha 1. I can't remember. He's from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He's the robot guardian of their temple or their sanctum or whatever it is. We have Fluffy from Bionic 6. We have Garax from Defenders of the Earth. He is a evil robot from the Defenders of the Earth cartoon. We have K9, who is a robot from Doctor Who.
Yep.
We have Roboto from Masters of the Universe. This is the Origins edition Roboto. We have Vincent from Black Hole. We have this guy whose name I can never remember. He's a skeleton-looking robot from Filmation's Ghostbusters. We have Thunderstick from Brave Star. We have the Bats from G.I. Joe. We have Mecha Turtle and the Fugitoid from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In solidarity with your lament about adding Transformers, I brought in Sunstreaker and Sideswipe to represent the Transformers since I knew you had Optimus and Megatron. We have Ultron from Marvel, the construct originally of Adam Pym in the MCU. He is the construct of Tony Stark. We have Maximilian from the Black Hole. We have Tweaky from Buck Rogers in the 25th century. We have the Cylon Warrior from Battlestar Galactica. We have Blinky from Bucky O'Hare right in front and center. We have the bad guy Hundred from RoboForce. We have Buzzsaw from Silverhawks. There's also a guy named Molecular, but I wasn't sure if he was a robot or not from that, so I just left him out. Yeah. We have Brainiac from Superpowers. I argue he's a robot because he's an AI, even though he's called Brainiac, so take it or leave it. We have one of Hordak's robot troopers from Masters of the Universe and She-Ra, Princess of Power. We have the Vision from Marvel. We have K2SO from Rogue One. We have the Ed 260 from the Kenner RoboCop and the Ultra Police, which, let's face it, that's the Ed 209 from RoboCop.
Yeah.
We have the robot, one of the robots from Robots of Death, which was one of the most famous Tom Baker Doctor Who episodes. Now, my pride and joy in this whole lineup is I have the Build-A-Figure of the robot, the K1 robot from the episode Robot, which is Tom Baker's very first Doctor Who episode, which very cool. All of you guys out there will know is the same episode or story series where the Scorpion tank from Action Man makes an appearance as a real tank. We have the two dudes from Captain Power, whose names I can never remember. They're just the two generic bad robot guys from Captain Power. This guy's like the Sauron Sky something, and this dude, I don't know. We'll just call him Jim. We have T-Bob from Mask, the very deservedly maligned T-Bob. Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation. We have this is the robot drone soldiers, almost like the stormtroopers from the second Robotech series, Southern Cross. These are evil drones from Starcom, from the bad guy side of things. We have a foot soldier from Ninja Turtles. And as you know, in the Ninja Turtles cartoon, foot soldiers were robots. And then, of course, we have the T-800 from Terminator, who is also not a human being nor a cyborg. So skin does not count as a brain. All right, guys? Yeah, he's got skin, but it's not a brain, okay? So
yeah, no, Terminator is not a cyborg. Those black hole figures are exceedingly rare, aren't they?
They are. And the funny part is that all of these black hole figures have been sent to me over the last few years by just super generous, devoted supporters of the channel that just want to see black hole stuff in this room. So,
yeah, they're very, very kind of them.
Yeah.
We have a couple of super chats here. Brian Dillingham, $2. Void. So Brian Dillingham sends me $2 super chats every time. It used to be for the Black Series habit. It's now become for the Valaverse habit. And today he says, void where prohibited. Connor Fuller says, Tony, not sure if Gracie watched the Australian Married at First Sight, but my missus is binging it here, allowing me to tune into the live stream.
Nice.
Yes, it was on TV last night, and she did watch it. I do not watch it with her. And Charles Phillips, the GoBots having human brains is a really unsettling thought for some reason.
Hey, Soviet idiot, Cobra Bat is right here. He's not missing. It's right here.
Or maybe he's saying, is it missing from my table?
That's the reason we're doing a combined live stream, so we represent all the different robots. So if you're looking left and not seeing it, you need to look right, buddy.
Yeah. So I thought a question I wanted to pose to you and try and get your thoughts on it. Do you consider original G1 Transformers? Do you consider them action figures?
They are okay, how do I put this? The depictions of those characters now in modern toys is closer to what a durable action figure would be, and it's an action figure with a transforming gimmick. However, the original Transformers G1 toys like these and the ones you have, I've always felt like they were more mecha. I've always felt like they were more Chogokin, like mini Chogokin mecha robots than they were action figures, because they don't have enough articulation or rough and tumble durability to be action figures. I mean, there wasn't a lot of rough and tumble action on Star Trek: The Next Generation, but the Playmates action figures are in the grand tradition of action figure durability. They're made of a rugged, durable plastic. If you throw one across the room, it's probably not going to get broken. It'll probably just take a scuff. Whereas if you throw Sunstreaker across the room, he's going to explode into 40 pieces. So I think they're more like mecha, Japanese mecha, than they are action figures. But people can light me up for that if they want.
Yeah, so I did a video a while back around the what I consider to be the top 10 action figure toy lines of the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And Transformers was on the list, but I did say when I discussed it that I kind of reluctantly put them on there because I don't feel they qualify as action. These Star Wars figures here, they're action figures. Faker's an action figure. Rom's an action figure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a toy robot.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Like even this Ultron, even though he's a robot, he's an action figure robot. He's not a, he's not a, kind of, these guys are like portable Rubik's cubes for kids. And they're cool. And they are characters, but they are not, the toys themselves are not in my mind, action figures at all. They're a different thing. They're closer to gimmicky Hot Wheels or Matchbox cars than they are action figures. So, but we've
got a super chat here from the World Made of Cardboard. He says, Michael, so we are not including robot vacuum cleaners. Sorry, to do it again.
Well, I don't own any, and oh gosh, saying that out loud, that means someone's going to send me a whole box full of them from somewhere. But no, I don't own any robotic vacuum cleaners nor any vacuum cleaner characters. So I not that I'm aware of any figures that were made from Brave Little Toaster. So nope.
Isn't it funny some of the weird trends that develop on the channels? Like your last few live streams, people. How did all that all start? Vacuum cleaners. I don't remember.
Melinda brought up a vacuum cleaner that she had gotten. And people just started showing all this interest in the vacuum cleaner conversation. And so Tim and I are sitting over on this side of the table, just like, well, I guess we should just get a book or something, because she just started having this conversation. And the whole episode was supposed to be about, the whole stream was supposed to be about something else. And I kept worrying because I'm like, we've got hundreds of people watching this thing and they're all going to be like, what did I walk into? I walked into a vacuum cleaner conversation. Like, this is weird. So I kept, but people kept bringing it back up. And now every live stream, somebody brings up vacuum cleaners. All I'm really happy about is that they're no longer talking about my hair. That's all. You know what? If we've moved on, that's great.
Yeah. We'll move on to something else soon. So I was sitting there yesterday. I always get really fascinated by trying to figure out, which figure was a first.
Yeah.
Any particular sort of category. And I know when you're talking robots, you can go back to the very early 60s. There was like Robbie the Robot toys, but I don't know if they're actually action figures. They're toys.
Right.
The oldest one that I was certainly in my collection would have to be Maskatron from the $6 Million Man, who I absolutely love this toy. So obviously the $6 Million Man toy line, the $6 Million Man is a cyborg. It actually comes from a book that was originally called Cyborg. It wasn't called the $6 Million Man. But Maskatron is a full-blown robot from head to tail. Yeah. I can't think of a robot in an action figure line prior to that. Certainly could be wrong. I haven't done a massive amount of research into this. We'll see if anyone in the chat corrects me. And we have another super chat here. Scott Newton, thank you very much. Outrageous false advertising from my youth. 2XL, slapping a couple of light bulb eyes on an 8-track player does not make it a robot.
Right. Oh, and Todd Bowman had a super chat asking about Robbie the Robot, actually. He said no.
He did?
No, yeah, Todd Bowman. He said no Robbie the Robot.
I just mentioned that. I didn't see his super chat.
Yeah, it's between Scott's and...
oh, yes. Sorry. Here we go.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just wanted to point it out.
No, thank you, because I totally missed that one. Yes, I don't know if Robbie the Robot is an action figure as such. Certainly not the original. Did they do?
I need to look it up and see if there were Forbidden Planet toys, because that was in the mid 50s, I believe, and toy lines back then were not what they are now. The whole concept of toys was totally different. So while there are Robbie the Robot Forbidden Planet commemorative toys that are out as of last year at Walmart, they're a commemorative piece. They're not an original toy in that sense. So I just don't own any because I've never been somebody who had a burning desire to go. I own the movie on Blu-ray, so I hope I can get some credit for that from everybody out there. Like I've watched many times and own the movie. But I'm just not after Forbidden Planet collectibles. I'm just not, I also don't buy Howdy Doody stuff. And that's not a dig on Forbidden Planet. It's just from the same time period. So,
yeah. Here's a question from Steve Gilmore, and thank you for the super chat, Steve. He says, "Is there any robot you both lament wasn't made into an action figure?" I have an answer for this.
Okay, go ahead.
I really should remember the character's name, but the robot from the movie Short Circuit.
Oh, Johnny Five. That's
Johnny Five. Johnny Five is alive. Yeah, I should remember that.
See, this is why I would be so bad at game shows, because I could answer every question on the board, but I can't do it under pressure and hit the buzzer. Like the moment he said it, I'm like, I go blank, and I'm like, oh. But yeah, Johnny Five is the answer. That is the one movie where there should have been a Johnny Five toy standalone. Because I mean, who wants a Steve Guttenberg action figure? I mean, nobody, right? He was the icon of that movie. So yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done a commemorative one. And if I find out that NECA is the company that gets it, I'm just going to walk away and throw my hands up, because Johnny Five's arms and stuff under NECA quality control, I mean, they'd snap like that. So that wouldn't be worth it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beta Ray Bob, thanks for the super chat. It says, just giving a shout out for Microman, Micronauts, and Metal Men, my favorite robot figure from childhood. And I have Jody, Gen X Toys Geek. He says, are we going to see Maskatron explode again? No, I'm not going to do that again on a live stream. That took a lot of cleaning up afterwards. If you want to see me do that live, there's a live stream from a long time ago in our playlist where I did a live stream about the $6 Million Man. So do you have a favorite robot from pop culture?
I don't want to be cliche. I do really lean on R2-D2 from my childhood. However, within the past 2 or 3 years, I have also very rapidly started to adopt the warm feelings that a lot of people have for K9 from Doctor Who. I know he's considered by some hipsters to be cheesy and something, but I actually really like that robot because he's a real prop and not a digital effect. That means a lot to me when the character occupies physical space in the set during the production. So I really like him. I'm trying to think if there's another robot character in animation maybe that I might like. Well, yeah, I really like the 2 cars in pole position. I know that they're robots that can be removed from the cars. But they're like robotic AI, Wheels and Rhodey. I like them a lot. But that's more of a rediscovery as an adult than from when I was a kid. So
yeah.
Oh, and I love K2SO. I love K2SO. He's hilarious. I love him too.
I was just about to say from recent kind of pop culture memory, K2SO is my favorite robot. But I think there would be if you were in a crowded bar, with people all kind of in their 40s, and you said to them, "Who's your favorite robot from childhood?" If it's R2-D2, stand over here. If it's anyone else, stand over there. You have 95% of the room are going to stand over here, and the other 5 people are going to feel ostracized by the rest of the group.
Sure. Well, they built in so much cool stuff about him that how do I put this? They future-proofed him movie to movie. So it wasn't like, how in a lot of cartoons and things, or even in movie sequels, you'll have a character that the rules were already established for in the original film or television season or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden in the next series or the next movie, suddenly they can do all these things that ostensibly they shouldn't be able to do, and that's just to try and give that character more visual agency or something like that, to keep the audience, quote, interested in them. The thing I love about R2-D2 is that they designed him from the get-go with all of these panels and doors and Swiss Army knife type stuff. So and then they didn't define all of it in the first movie. So as a kid, you were always wondering, what is in that cylinder? Like, what else can he do? And so every time he did something, another door would pop open and another tool would come out. And that made it organically interesting. Like, R2-D2 has a lot of credibility in that sense as a viewer, because he's not someone where they just said, quick. Now, in the prequels, they did kind of jump the shark with that, where they're like, he can fly. And I'm like, all right, well, this is getting a little okay. But before that, I felt like he was within the rails. I really liked R2-D2 for that reason.
Yeah. Another personal favorite of mine, I'm wearing the t-shirt, Skeletron.
Yeah.
Simply because he was the mail away. Originally, he was going to be called Robo Skull. And, I don't actually think, I don't know if Bob actually gave the vehicle a name at the time. Skeletron was going to be the pilot of the Robo Skull. But but the character was called Robo Skull, and he took it to marketing, and they said, "No, you've got to call the vehicle Robo Skull." And then they created a different driver, and Skeletron got pushed across as a mail away figure. So,
right now is
lots of interesting history there.
Is the Mouton also a robot?
Yeah, well, he is. So I'm going to read the back of the file card here because I know he doesn't look like one.
Yeah.
But the file card says that they are death robots built by Ironblood to further his evil aims, developed as totally programmable death machine of awesome power, almost indestructible. Action Force scientists are trying to discover its weakness. That's pretty cool data file.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So
the moment I saw when you and George were sending me a bunch of those figures and stuff, when the Mouton came out of the box, I was kind of like, wow, I can see this as one of the figures I would have played with a lot when I was a kid. Like I was instantly drawn to it. I was like, whoa. So
it's because it's just bonkers.
yeah. But yet you can do anything,
Yeah. Yeah. Take the deep sea diver, stick all these attachments onto the helmets and paint them up red and black. Skull and crossbones.
I think it's great.
But when you give them a background like that, saying they're totally indestructible death robots, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing I kind of wanted to discuss is, I believe in Battlestar Galactica with the Cylons, I believe originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a Battlestar Galactica expert, but I think originally they were supposed to be cyborgs. Did they change in the story to be robots so that they could be shot and stuff on the TV show?
All right, so true confessions time, and I don't mind. Yeah, I got no receipts to hide, everybody. Battlestar Galactica was a show that ran in reruns when I was very young. I was born in the summer of '78, right around the time that it would have been about to come on TV. So I missed the phenomenon that was Battlestar Galactica. And when I saw it in reruns as a kid, I have the whole series now on Blu-ray, but I've only watched a few episodes into it. And so I'm still learning a lot about the behind the scenes and everything like that. If they are cyborgs, call it out in the chat, Battlestar Galactica experts, because I am still a Battlestar Galactica newbie in that sense. Yes, 45 years on, time makes fools of us all. But when I saw the clips as a kid, I just saw red light, robotic voice, get shot, sparks go everywhere. And so I just naturally assumed that they were robotic warriors, but maybe you're right. Maybe they are cyborgs. So.
Yeah. I was chatting to someone the other day about it. I believe that's kind of what happened. But do you let's talk about the Cobra Bat for the moment. I think the Cobra Bat is an awesome looking action figure, but it's also kind of one of those trends where part of the reason they wanted to introduce, I feel anyway, that they wanted to introduce a robot particularly into the cartoon, is so that, finally we didn't have to have everyone parachuting out of a crashed vehicle and, not getting shot in G.I. Joe. Now the Joes could actually shoot and destroy things.
Yeah. That's exactly why they did it. And it was the same reason why the foot soldiers in the Ninja Turtles comic went from being real human ninjas to being robots. There's actually a line I was thinking of when I was setting up this table where the Turtles in the miniseries, they're like, these guys are robots. And then Michelangelo's like, robots. And then he's like, nunchucks out. And he's like, let's rock. And he just starts tearing everything up, which was almost like the show was giving kids permission. Hey, it's okay. You can get all pumped up and feel violent because these are robots, kids. It's okay. And the bats were the same way. It was like, now Bazooka can shoot a rocket into a big group of things and watch body parts go everywhere. And Sergeant Slaughter can literally rip heads off of things. And it's okay because it's robots. That's what the bat served. Yeah, it totally served that purpose.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of instances in pop culture like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're just talking about the Cylon.
They're saying right here that in 1979, the Cylons were robots made by people that rebelled, and it wasn't until later that, I guess in the rebooted show, or maybe before that, I don't know, maybe somebody did a super chat or something where they explain it. But
yes, we've got a super chat here from Wolfie762. Thank you very much. He says Galactica 1980 did have a Cylon that looked human but was an android of sorts, cost-saving measure, but kind of predicted the future with the modern Battlestar Galactica.
Right. Brian Dillingham had a super chat. Can't remember if we read it, saying, weren't there toys from the Lost in Space TV show of the robot from that show? I don't recall. Again, that was another early 60s, late 50s TV show, and I'm not sure what the toy lines were like back then. I would assume there would have been a model kit, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of stuff like Lost in Space and Forbidden Planet, you would have there'd be a lot of Japanese tin plate toys of those.
Right.
For some reason, the chat in StreamYard is not working very well. I've just pulled it up on YouTube on the other screen here.
That's no problem. I've got some of them. Yeah, that was the next one right there, was Raymond's.
Yeah, so Raymond, thank you very much. Says, hi, Tony and Michael. Great topic and collections on show. Tony, love the ROM Space Night. Thank you. Have either of you ever had any of the Mattel Shogun Warriors, which came in 3.5 inch, 5 inch, or 24 inch size?
I have 2 Shogun Warrior 24-inch Mazinger Zs, both of which are going to eventually be combined to create one intact one. But those are the only 2 I have. I don't have any of the others. Those Shogun Warriors, which were known in Japan as Jumbo Mashinders, they are a cult unto themselves in the collecting world, and you can seriously remortgage your house a few times trying to get all of them, and you'll never get Garada K7 anyway. So, yeah, don't be a completist if you love Shogun Warriors. Just
it's not a toy line that particularly appeals to me. Which they were 1970s toys, which is probably one of the differences between retroblasting and analog toys is that I go kind of back into the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
But that's one of the 70s toy lines. That and Micronauts just not really my thing.
Right.
That's when I was kind of walking around the collection yesterday or the day before, trying to pick out robot action figures. I was like, oh, why did I pick this topic? I don't have a lot of stuff. I'm obviously not. I know I'm not big into robots. I've always been more of it's like military style toy, action style toy lines of what appeal to me more. So we got a super chat here from Lio Convoy. Good to see you, Lio, on the chat. It says, did someone say robots? And Wicked Person says, in the 1978 series, Cylon was the name of the reptilian alien race who constructed robot soldiers. According to Wikipedia.
Yeah, so these guys are robots built by the alien race known as the Cylons. Perfect. So I'm not disqualified for that one. Awesome.
Oh well, it's we can be a little bit relaxed here. We didn't want a half-empty tape. It's really hard, isn't it, when you actually say, right, you've got to pick these robots, and Tony's making all these rules like, well, you can't use Transformers because they're all robots.
Right.
So that's what it's out. And now you can't have cyborgs. It actually makes it very difficult. There aren't that many. So I would have thought, going through all the different toy lines, a lot of toy lines did have a robot character in there. So in Master of the Universe, you had, first of all, Faker, and then actually Roboto. I believe the Bat was the only robot I can think of in G.I. Joe. Were there any others, you know?
There was one there's one if you make a concession for the cartoon being goofy. So in the cartoon, the snake armor just became a snake robot. Like, it was the armor was an automated robot rather than a suit that anybody put on, and they fought them in that cave and blew them up. So, but that was the only time you saw them really in the whole cartoon run, was in that first miniseries. But in the comic book and the action figure line, of course, it was simply a suit of armor that you could wear, like Lex Luthor did in the comics of DC.
Yep.
So,
Lara Convoy Reviews is, since you're into action military stuff and 70s stuff, you ought to check out Gundam. I can help if you need it. Thanks, Thomas. I've never sort of looked too much into Gundam before.
Gundam
Have
is
you?
I know what it is. It's hard to when you're someone that hasn't been in the anime world your whole life, like I haven't. It's hard to look into Gundam and the mecha genre and start to pull those needles out of the haystack that is mecha, because I get it confused with Macross and all those different shows like that. Sometimes people will want to reach through the internet and slap me because I'll be like, is the Guyver related to that? And they're like, it's not even the same thing, and it's like, okay, sorry. But yeah, Gundam has a storied anime history.
So when I made a thumbnail for this live stream on prior to chatting to you yesterday, and you agreed to come on the show. So I went and made another thumbnail. That first thumbnail was pretty much a photo of kind of what I've got on the table here, and one of the supporters of the channel reached out to me by messenger asking around, well, are you going to do cyborgs as well? So, he was particularly asking about Daleks and Cybermen. I said, no, it's robots, not cyborgs. And he said, well, you shouldn't have Rom on the table. Rom's a cyborg. I was like, is he? So I've never really read the comics. To me, this was a robot introduced to the Action Man line. That's how I knew him as a child. Yeah. Obviously, in the States, he was a standalone figure. In the UK, he was brought into the Action Man Space Rangers line.
Yeah.
To me, he's always been a robot. I don't know if anyone else in the chat can let me know whether he's a cyborg or not, but he's on the table anyway. Who cares?
I have to embarrassingly say that I picked up back in the 90s. I picked up ROM issue #1. Because it was just one of those books that was cheap in the 90s to get back issues of. And I was collecting #1s for a little while just because I thought, oh, #1s, those are the ones that are valuable, And I have a near mint condition ROM issue #1 that I've never read. And it's right upstairs. So I could have answered that question if I had just read that issue 20 years ago. But I haven't. So
maybe it's not explained in the first issue. You never know.
Oh, I know, right? They save
maybe they get to that in issue 2 or something.
Yeah. Dang it. Yeah.
Scott Newton, thank you. He says Rom is a cyborg in the comics, but the toy was originally sold as a robot. Yeah.
So they split hairs on that one. You can win either way. That's great.
Yeah. I was actually surprised at how much interest I've had about this particular topic. So I put up a poll on my Patreon, not for every live stream, but for most of them. And, with a few different topics, this was the overwhelming vote was for, action figure robots. But a lot of people have, once it was kind of announced, yep, that's what the live stream topic's going to be. A lot of people have been reaching out to me on social media asking questions, but I haven't really had that with one of my live streams before.
Oh,
and people asking me, am we going to be talking about Daleks? And I, off the top of my head, I don't remember all the different things they were kind of suggesting.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, they were really getting into the pop culture space in general. And I'm sort of saying to them, yeah, but there aren't action figures of that. Like, I understand what you're saying. It's a robot in pop culture, and that's again, that's where our two channels kind of differ slightly. Mm-hmm. I have, by putting the word kind of toy in the name. I mean, all I really want to do is make videos about toys, whereas RetroBlasting is the whole pop culture retro experience. So maybe people confuse the two of us sometimes.
No, I'm all about the toys, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not somebody that's like, oh, I do toys part-time. And then they're like, well, then what's all that crap behind you? But at the same time, yeah, I do kind of go into other parts of fan behavior and I talk about the animated, properties that are related to these things or the movies or whatever. But I'm also notoriously, compared to other channels, I'm notoriously slow at bringing out those pieces of content because I'm always playing the long game with a video. But in the case of Doctor Who and the Daleks and stuff, you know, like you mentioned, that is a pop culture assumption that a lot of people make. I think casual viewers of Doctor Who and people who just kind of know Doctor Who without ever having seen it, they say, oh yeah, those are those robots that are the enemies of the Doctor. And it's like, yeah, I can see totally why somebody would think that, because it's literally, it's a little alien squid that you never see that's inside this thing. And if you don't watch Doctor Who, you would never know that. Same thing with the Cybermen. I mean, they're called Cybermen. They have like a silver jumpsuit on because everybody knows Doctor Who had budget problems throughout its whole original run. But between that and this robot guy, this guy is supposed to be an actual robot, and his costume is no better than the Cyberman at the end of the day. And the Cyberman is a human being or a living being turned into a cyborg. You know, he becomes a mindless drone. It's like the Borg, which is why the Borg is actually not on the table. Well, actually, that's just because I couldn't get to his action figure fast enough. But yeah, there's a lot of that going on in Doctor Who because the showrunner in the 60s said, you can do whatever you want, but no robots. And so the writers were like, okay. And so when they brought him the Dalek, he was like, hey, that's a robot. And they're like, no, it's a survival suit for an alien. And he was like, fine. You know, like, so, you know, so I see why, you know, people think that. Yeah.
Got a super chat here from Jim Largo. Thank you. He says, robots were the best sci-fi sidekicks until Transformers made humans the sidekicks. Another reason to hate Transformers.
Yeah. I know how you feel about Transformers, Tony. I'm kind of on the same page. When I was a kid, the Transformers, they just weren't ready for prime time as toys. Like maybe for Japanese kids, you know, who were used to playing with toys like that. But for this first generation of American kids, the toys they just weren't robust enough. And I wasn't a destructive child, but for some reason, the toys just didn't, they just didn't survive. I mean, it was just like, I kept the bits because I was always a kid that cherished my toys, but I would keep them in a bin of shame and just look at them every now and then and be like, oh, I wish I could magically put my leg back on my Optimus Prime. There was no eBay to get another one back then. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a real issue with Transformers. I've made a video about it. I have mass shifting. I know it's one of those almost when you get into a bit of I won't say an argument, but if you get into a heated debate with a Transformers fan, it's just that easy get out clause. It's mass shifting, just explains away all this stupidity.
Right.
But why can only some of them mass shift and not others? So if Megatron can go from a small German pistol that's in Starscream's hand and then transform into this giant robot, why, when Optimus Prime is a truck, doesn't he transform into a robot that's the size of Unicron? It doesn't. I don't get it.
Yeah, or why when they can't get into a place, can they not just like transform into really, really tiny Hot Wheel size cars and then just drive under doorways and stuff like that?
Yeah,
because of the mass shifting. Yeah, I'm a giant sound wave character that turns into a boombox that somebody can carry on their shoulder. No explanation. No explanation at all. Yeah, Transformers and me, I loved the concept. I think I talked about this in the video I did years ago, but maybe I haven't. Maybe I did it in a live stream or something. But I remember before the show was out and it was just the toys. And it was GoBots and Transformers competing for my attention. And I do remember before we had a story, just loving being able to do in my mind whatever I wanted with these robots. You know, it was like I had Wheeljack and I had Ratchet, and those were the only two, with maybe a few of the little ones, that I had before the show came out. But I remember just thinking, oh, he's like this cool robot guy. And I just made up stuff in my head about him. It was what I made up in my head was cooler than what the show ended up being. And I know that there's a lot of people who say, well, but you know, television shows back then were what sold the toys. Maybe, but transforming die-cast cars was a pretty radical concept in the Western world in 1984. I don't think they'd have had a hard time moving those any more than they sell millions of Hot Wheels a year, without having the need for a cartoon. Hot Wheels has never had a cartoon, and they still sell.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if Transformers needed a mythology. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, certainly. Like, growing up in the UK, kind of quite different. That there were certain huge popular toy lines that. I'm not talking about the Palatoy Action Force here. I'm talking about when Hasbro reintroduced Action Force International Heroes, which was just a rebranded G.I. Joe. There were cartoons, but they weren't aired on TV. You had to go to the local video rental store and hire a VHS cassette. So a lot of us kids just took the mythology from the comic. That toy line sold like gangbusters in 1987 with no supporting toy line. You know, He-Man was still on TV, Transformers was on TV, but we never got the G.I. Joe cartoon aired on TV. Right. I don't think British censorship would have allowed it. I mean, we didn't get the Rambo and the Force of Freedom cartoon either.
Right.
I've got some super chats here to catch up with.
Sure. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't.
Ray Bob, thank you very much. Says, for both of you, who is your favorite Star Wars robot / droid?
Well, for me, it's a toss-up between R2-D2 and K2SO. Mm-hmm.
So I really want to give the same answer because that's how I feel.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll back off that. I also was a big fan of IG-88 as a kid. I really liked IG-88, and I really liked R5-D4 because he was the red R2-D2 with the different head and everything. So, yeah.
When it comes to like outside of the films and you're talking about the action figures, R5-D4 is one of my favorite Star Wars droid action figures. Probably because he took me so long to get, but he's just a really nice counterpart, I suppose, to R2-D2 on a collector's shelf. So.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, they had already discontinued. I didn't even know. They had already discontinued the original versions of R2 and 3PO and replaced them with the sensor scope and break apart. So I never saw the solid C3PO or the solid dome R2-D2 until decades later as a collector.
Yeah, I have both of those, the solid dome and the solid C3PO, but I've put on the table the Empire Strikes Back version because, like you, they're the ones I had as a kid. Yeah, I had break apart C3PO with the netting backpack and everything.
Yep.
A World Made of Cardboard. He says, growing up with PBS in rural Louisiana, I loved Doctor Who but had no figures. Doctor Who was aired in rural Louisiana.
Yeah, PBS picked up Doctor Who and started running it in syndication. That was our public broadcasting network in either the very late 70s or early 80s. And they started with the Tom Baker stuff. I think even some of the Pertwee stuff was shown as well. But it was because Doctor Who had become so popular in the UK in the preceding years that they started, trying to license the older episodes to other markets. And so that's what grew a Doctor Who fan base here in the States, in the late 70s and through the mid 80s here for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, World Made of Cardboard saying he loved Doctor Who but had no figures. So his 3 FX7 action figures became Daleks and the AT-AT drivers, TIE pilots became Cybermen in my homemade cardboard playsets.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they, right?
It doesn't take much imagination, that.
Yeah, I guess if you got the right looking Fisher Price adventure people, you'd have the Doctor and his companions as well. So, yeah.
Wicked Person says story concept first, toy concept second seems to work best. I agree. Straczynski said riders on Motu drew straws to see who got stuck with new toys they had to include in scripts. Stridor, well, it's a horse, so yeah, a horse.
It's a robot horse.
Ah, could have put that on the table. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and so is Jitsu's horse, the mirrored one, because Mattel loved to mirror things to save
the
money.
Night Stalker, maybe.
Stalker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that he brings up, that whole thing about I don't remember how the super chat went. Hold on, I gotta read it again. He said Riders of Motu. Yeah, that's another example like Transformers, Tony, where I remember 1982 He-Man, before there was a cartoon, watching the commercials for the Castle Grayskull toy and seeing all that stuff. And we had our own idea of what the He-Man world was like. And it was this primordial, almost Conan-like world with, sort of like ethereal magic. And there was kind of some sinisterness to it and everything like that. The Filmation show comes out, and I was a little kid, so I liked the show. But I always remember it feeling different after the show happened than in that brief window before the show told us what to think about those characters. Yeah.
Yeah, it was when I was opening up that very generous gift box from Sal the other day that had all the Motu Origins in it. At the time, before getting that box, I had 3 figures and had only opened one of them. So I'd looked at the mini comic in Man at Arms. So after I get the gift box from Sal, I'm taking all these other characters off there, thinking like back in the day, there's an individual mini comic for each character. There's not. There's a mini comic for wave 1. And there's another mini comic for wave 2. But much like yourself, that's how I was introduced to Masters of the Universe before the TV show.
Yep.
And I much preferred the mythology in those mini comics too.
Yeah.
I didn't dislike the cartoon. It was a cartoon that I watched a lot and loved. But yeah, I also particularly enjoyed there was something a little bit more, slightly more adult almost about the story in the mini comics as opposed to the cartoon, which was very kidsy.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid even saying, how come Skeletor doesn't have his sword? Because the sword was in all of the merchandise. Skeletor had a sword and He-Man had a sword, and they were 2 halves of the same magic weapon. And, they maintained that throughout the toy line, and yet he never had really, I think maybe in one episode he might have, but for the most part, he never had his sword. And other things like why was Faker in the television show, and I get it. I get that to be a good imposter, you can't be colored blue and red. I get that. But as a kid, I'm going, well then, because if they want to sell another toy, they have to make him look different, because otherwise another He-Man is Faker. So the Filmation thing, they had some challenges they had to get around, and but fond memories all the same.
Yeah. So this would have been one of those cases, and I've heard Larry Harmer talk about this quite a lot with some of the new toys coming out for Hasbro's G.I. Joe. This would have been one of those cases where Mattel have gone, oh, let's just paint, or let's just mold He-Man in blue plastic, give him Skeletor's armor, and then we've got a different character and we can call him Baker. Then they want it put into the cartoon, and the writers are like, yeah, that's not even going to fly with 4-year-old kids. That they know that's not He-Man.
Are you all blind? Because look at, they like him. Although I wouldn't put it past Randor to just kind of, think that was He-Man. All they would have to do is have somebody say to Randor, "Oh, the He-Man's here," and then Faker in blue and red, with orange, armor walks in, and I can just see Randor being like, "Hello, He-Man."
Wicked Person says, I was a Doctor Who fan in rural Canada in the 70s. No toys. I made break apart cardboard Daleks and a TARDIS to shoot with my Micronauts rubber darts. I can remember making a cardboard TARDIS when I was a kid for my Action Man figures.
Yeah, they didn't even have toys until the Sylvester McCoy era, and that was the Dapple train set company that made them, and they made them for decades. I mean, even after the show was canceled. And the toys are so weird because, like, they made Daleks, and I think they made a Cyberman. They're 3 3/4 inch, but like John Pertwee, he looks like he's as tall as like Magic Johnson, and and yet Tom Baker is like a real short action figure. Doesn't have a scarf, doesn't have a hat. And it was clear that the toy line itself was logoed and focused on the Sylvester McCoy Doctor Who era, but yet the Sylvester McCoy gift set, which came with him and Mel and the TARDIS play set, came with K9. So I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
what? He never hung out with the robot dog. It was a very weird merchandising line. Yeah.
So are you not familiar with the Dennis Fisher Doctor Who stuff from the 70s?
Yes, I'm sorry. My mind totally blanked on that. I guess I just didn't think about that because I was thinking of like a range, of toys. But from what I understand, the Dennis Fisher line, they even had a K1 robot in there, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
They had Tom Baker,
Mhm.
the TARDIS, K9.
Didn't they have Leela? Wasn't she one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Leela, Cybermen, Dalek, and the robot.
Wow. So it was almost like a $6 million man style line then, because those were like this. They were tall.
Oh, they were kind of in between. If you've ever seen the Mego Flash Gordon stuff,
yeah.
It's so you got the Mego World's Greatest Superheroes, mate. It's like halfway between that and a 12-inch GI Joe, around 10-inch, I think.
Wow, still though, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, being a collector of 60s and 70s stuff as well as 80s, I would like to have a Doctor Who representation in the collection.
Yeah.
For me, that's the line I want to collect. It is so expensive.
Yeah, I've like over the years, I occasionally would look, and in toy collecting, I've always taken on the philosophy of start with the hardest one to get, And I would see like prices for the K1 robot and Leela, and I'd be like, okay, never mind. I'm just gonna live content in disappointment. Like I'm not gonna go there. There's just no way. You could probably end up with the prices they demand for those. You could end up with a good handful of black hole figures. You might even get yourself a vinyl Cape Jawa. I mean, like, whoa, yeah.
Yeah, although I think Doctor Who's still cheaper than the Knickerbocker Lord of the Rings that you were talking about the other day.
Oh my gosh! Have you looked those up on occasion?
Yeah. I've been aware of those for a long time.
Yeah,
just crazy, absurd prices for those.
Yeah, for real. There was one guy on eBay that for months and months, I don't know if he ever sold it, but he had all of them. I don't remember if they were carded or loose, but they were all complete AFA graded. And he had them all, just the picture was just a stack of acrylic boxes, and it was like starting bid $24,000. And I was just going, wow, okay. Yeah, good luck with that.
I'll buy the wife a new car.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Gunstar One, thank you. He says, it's amazing the blanks our childhood imaginations were able to fill in. I kind of miss that.
Yeah. I really
it was especially good when toy lines gave you enough that was tangible where you could add in the other imaginary stuff. I don't remember which of your videos it was, Michael, but certainly when you were talking about the Star Wars line just being one Luke Skywalker, and then you have a pen and a 9-volt battery to be
yeah. I love that. People are always like, it's called your imagination. It's like, look, if we're going to use that as an excuse, then what you're saying is don't ever criticize anything in toys ever again. Like if your NECA Defenders of the Earth Phantom's arm breaks off in the box while you're opening it, you can just use your imagination to pretend it's not broken. Like that's where we go down that slippery slope if we're not careful. There has to be some way to kind of measure this stuff a little bit. Doesn't mean you hate it. Just means you It just means you put it on a sliding scale. There's nothing wrong with saying the Star Trek Playmates action figures' hands were way too big on every figure. That's just an objective observation. It's not me saying they should all be flushed down the toilet. It's just saying they all had huge hands.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so for me, like with Action Man, it would be an Action Man mountaineer.
Mm-hmm.
I would pretend that the stairs in our house back in England was the mountain that he had to climb, and he would have different adventures as he was trying to get up there. That's called using your imagination. But having the original idea for G.I. Joe came from seeing an artist wooden mannequin in an art supply store. Mm-hmm. So that's like saying when you're a kid, you get given one of those wooden mannequins, and now I've got to pretend that he's a mountaineer with accessories and ropes, and climbing hooks, and all this stuff.
It's like, why aren't we allowed to have some fun with a little bit of material support? Like, we're not asking for the moon, but it's kind of cool to know that, in the Escape from Colditz, escape briefcase or whatever, you have all those little gadgets and gizmos and everything to, just make that adventure even more tactile. It was one of the, I know we've lamented some of the shortcomings of Transformers, but it was one of the coolest selling points about Transformers was when they say it turns into a convincing die-cast car, it really did turn into a very convincing die-cast car. Like any of the vehicle ones in Generation 1, it was really cool to see them turn into something that you could put on a shelf and someone might think that's a nice model kit or that's a nice, jumbo Hot Wheel or something. That stuff is fun. Imagine if it was called the Transformers and it was just 5 points of articulation, Kenner style robot guys that had automobile details on them. And they're like, they transform into cars. Use your imagination to pretend they're cars. I mean, okay.
Exactly.
Oh.
Wicked Person, he says, when in Llangollen, well, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, Wales in 99, I went to Dapple and bought a TARDIS and some figures, a Scarfus, Tom Baker, Dalek and Davros, and saw Bessie, the Who car.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And we have The World Made of Cardboard. Tony, Biff Bang Pow remade that Doctor Who line in 2012. Oh, did they?
Oh, did they?
I believe I've seen that. Did they do the whole line or just Doctor Who and Leela? I don't know. I'm sure that would have come across my radar. If there was a TARDIS included, that would have been something I would have been very interested in getting. I don't know if it actually came across my radar or not.
I remember seeing those boutique companies around that time. I remember there was another company that did that with Buck Rogers. They created like a Mego style set of Buck Rogers figures based on the 70s show, and they did some Battlestar Galactica stuff. I can't remember if that was Diamond Select that did those. But yeah, that was like a fad there for a while.
And my friend Alan Dawson here from Wales said I murdered that pronunciation, so I'm sorry.
Well, Alan, you'll find no non-Brit greater than me that has greater love for all of the countries of Great Britain and all the Commonwealth countries as well. But I'm going to tell you objectively, somebody standing on the outside of the Welsh language, you guys have a language that's more intimidating than German when it comes to trying to pronounce the word. And Germany has the longest train station sign on the Guinness Book for the number of letters in one word. So I'm telling you that consistently, you got to give everybody else a little bit of latitude there. We're trying. We respect you. We love you. Just cut us some slack, okay?
I've spent long periods of my life in Wales. We used to do a lot of military training in Wales because it's such a mountainous region. I'm pretty good at pronouncing the names of towns that I've been to, and I've spent some time there. But you throw another town name out, I'm going to butcher it. I'm going to butcher the name.
Yeah.
Bearded Geek Toy Reviews. Thank you for the super chat. He said he always wanted the Dennis Fisher giant robot, so was chuffed when CO, is that Character Options?
Yep.
Did one for their Classic Who range in 2008. Great stream. Love your channel, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is that the giant robot you have there?
Yeah, this is the Build-A-Figure from the original line, the classic line. The first line of Character Options, of course, as I knock over Arnold here. The first line of Character Options, of course, were based on the David Tennant new show that had come out. What they did the Eccleston season, saw that it was popular, geared up some toys when David Tennant took over the next season, and they brought those out. But then they immediately realized there was demand from adult collectors to also have the classic stuff. And so the first run of classic Doctors included a Build-A-Figure part to create the K1 robot, which I wasn't aware of at the time, but I was able to track one down a few years ago. And I bought him straight from a guy in the UK, and he is a pride and joy of my collection. Doesn't stand up all that well, but in that respect, it's a lot like the costume itself. So,
so was that figure hard to get, or is it desirable?
It is desirable. It was a little hard to find, especially to find one intact, because he's got that big sort of like laser gun thing on one arm that's, held together with like a thin tube of plastic, and it can break off a lot. But they tried to make it flexible. It wasn't brittle, but you can still, it being what it is. And yeah, so the Build-A-Figure K1 robot it's not the easiest one to track down. But again, a lot of those figures were sold, and they weren't, Comic-Con exclusives and stuff. So you can still find them, but you just pay a little bit. It's like with Marvel Legends having Build-A-Figures. The Build-A-Figures are always worth more than the figures that the parts came with. It's weird.
Yeah.
I would never want to own the Blob from the X-Men. But apparently, if you want the Build-A-Figure of the Blob and you have $350, it can be yours. And I'm just like, no. But the robot, the K1 robot, definitely was a must-have. Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus, thank you for the super chat. It says, Tony, your G1 Megatron in the box. Has it ever been opened? Love seeing vintage toys still in original packaging. Brings back the memories. Both Megatron and Optimus, I have boxes for both of them, but they are not sealed. So, and the good thing with Transformers toys, I'm going to say something good about Transformers here, is that you have vintage toys like these in packages. They have a styrofoam insert, and it's very easy to, if you want to take the figure out, photograph your Transformer, you can then put it back in the packaging, and it looks exactly the same. So yes, that Megatron has been out of the box. So you happy to go on a quick tangent, Michael?
Of course, absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on Build-A-Figures? The marketing concept.
I think as a marketing concept, you can look at it one of two ways. On the one hand, you can see it as, if you're Pollyanna about it, if you're a glass half full kind of person, you can say, oh, but this is a great way for them to get oversized figures into the marketplace in a more economic way. On the other hand, given how poor the distribution is of a lot of these toy lines today, and the fact that you're going to need 6 different figures to make a Build-A-Figure. One comes with the head, one comes with the torso, one arm, one leg. It's mercenary, because what they're saying is, let's take, for example, when Black Panther came out, the movie. Marvel Legends did a Black Panther line of Marvel Legends figures, but only 3 of the 6 figures were actually Black Panther related. The other 3 were like comic book versions of Namor and a random Iron Man, and I want to say it was like Bullseye or Deadshot or one of those characters, whoever it was. I guess it's Bullseye or something, or Havoc, or I don't know. All 3 of those characters you really wouldn't want. The problem is that the Build-A-Figure was Okoye from the Marvel Legends from the Marvel Black Panther movie, the Wakandan warrior with the spear. And you're like, well, I really want that character because she's the 4th character in this wave. But I'd have to buy 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, $120 worth of action figures to get her. And in that sense, in that particular example, that character isn't even oversized. She's not a giant like Wendigo or the Blob or Kingpin or the K1 robot. She's a normal size person. So yeah, I always err on the side of not worth it. Ultron was a Build-A-Figure. Sal donated this to me very kindly. But Ultron and the Hulk were both Build-A-Figures. I'm not a huge fan of the Build-A-Figure concept because it's a carrot on a stick for you to spend more money. It's kind of like when they put Tarkin in that board game. It's like, we want you to spend $50 for this, even though it's only a $10 figure at best. So we're going to put it in a board game you didn't ask for. It's like, thanks, I guess.
And then with the Mandalorian Retro Collection, they give you the one troop builder, the Stormtrooper, with Monopoly. How many Monopoly board games do we need? Yeah. And that figure looks terrible anyway, but...
Right, yeah. I didn't even know that. I've forgotten that they had done that, I guess, with their new retro line of Mandalorian stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I'd forgotten they'd done that. And I'm still trying to bet on which Jedi figure will get put into the Return of the Jedi Sarlacc re-released game. I keep saying it's going to be Death Star Luke Skywalker. That's my bet, but who knows?
Yep.
Yeah.
It totally wouldn't surprise me though if Hasbro just ditched the whole retro collection line and moved on to something else. They've never been consistent enough to follow through with things like this. They're just like, oh yeah, that Return of the Jedi. No, we're not making that. We're just going to move on to something different now. Yeah,
these companies have major corporate culture ADHD. They're like, quick rebrand, quick redo. We were all crossing our fingers when they announced the Doctor Who Blu-ray collection, because when you're a physical media collector of a series and it's not all coming out at once, that a lot of these companies, whether it's the X-Men movie line, movie series, or the Marvel movie series or anything else, those Blu-ray spines aren't going to stay consistent through the run of all those movies as you buy them. They're going to change them up. They did that with Star Wars. They did that with there was another line of movies, series of movies they did that with, where you literally got to like the second to last movie and suddenly, it was Bond. That's what it was James Bond. And suddenly they decided, you know what? For this new movie coming out, we're going to just make it real special and make the spine different. Well, everyone's going, that's going to look like crap on a shelf.
Yep.
But they do that every time. And with this Hasbro thing, it's the same way. A lot of people are sitting there saying, well, when are we going to get R2 and 3PO in the retro collection? When are we going to get, R5D4, Walrus Man, and Hammerhead in the retro collection? Greedo, Obi-Wan. When are we getting, those characters? And that Hasbro won't have the staying power to do it. They're going to be like, squirrel. They're going to go look over here and, go do something for what? The Acolyte or Into the Dark. Maybe they'll give us a plastic rock that'll be a navigator on a ship or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. When I was living in the UK in my kind of late 20s, and I was traveling overseas a lot with the military, I had a 2-bedroom flat, and I shared the flat with a guy that I knew from college. And in the living room, I had a couple of big bookcases with all of my DVD collection there. Mm-hmm. But I would, I might go overseas for 4 or 6 weeks or something with the military and would come back. I was really, really OCD about my DVD collection.
Right.
And my flatmate used to think it was hilarious that he would go in and he would change one DVD. He would either, because I had it organized by science fiction, action, by year, collections of trilogies and things like that. He would take one DVD and he might move it from sci-fi and put it in with action, or he might just turn it upside down so the spine read the wrong way to see how long it would take me to notice. when I got home, and I would come in, and literally it would be within a minute of being in that room. I would like, it's like, what?
Someone's been here. Yeah.
Yeah. Why have you? So you'd have the Bourne Identity, the Bourne Supremacy. Why is the Bourne Ultimatum sitting next to Star Wars?
Right. Yeah. You could just feel the whole feng shui of the room has shifted to the negative. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He thought this was hilarious, but I didn't.
Yeah. Your sense of humor is lacking, sir. Yeah. Exactly.
And I also, once he'd figured out pretty quickly that I would identify that almost straight away. Like, it's like, give up. Don't do it every single time.
Get new material, man. Get a new joke.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
There was a comment in the chat before. It was quite a while ago. I'm not going to chase it up. Someone mentioned Silverhawks. Are Silverhawks robots?
No, they are cyborgs. They are willful cyborgs that they have volunteered for a special space exploration / law enforcement program and became willing spacefaring cyborgs. They became cyborgs to survive in space, and but they still have human parts to varying degrees, which shockingly the first episode of the cartoon does go into in some detail, which I'm still shocked to this day that cartoon actually did that. But yeah, they're cyborgs.
Yeah. So I'm just looking around my table. Another robot that I found in my collection, and I'm pretty sure this is a robot, is the Bionic Bigfoot.
Oh,
and when I took this guy off the display shelf yesterday, this is probably the rarest $6 million man figure out. Well, no, I think the rarest $6 million man figure is the very last edition Steve Austin, which I don't have. He came with a slightly different feature and a different outfit, but it's Steve Austin. I've got a few different versions. I don't need them all. But beyond that, this is one of the rarest figures, and I picked him up yesterday, and I'm like, oh, he's about to become Broken Vader's cousin here. This is very, very. I can't pose the arm. It's gonna.
Yeah. Well, David Toy Polloi has a repair process for that. So
yeah, he just did the anti-Broken Vader video or something, didn't he?
Yeah, which
he
is funny.
Did one with Darth Vader.
Yeah, that video is actually several years old. It's a re-upload.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's got a process. So God forbid those arms fall off, but if they do, there will be hooks sticking out of them. They're like little plastic hooks. Don't press them in because then they'll get lost in the arm. And then you'll have to go digging for them like I did with Vader's arms. But you'll just be able to use some sort of zip tie method to get those arms reattached. So
it's one of the good things about running the channel and constantly picking stuff out of your display to put on the table or make a video. It's almost as though I'm regularly doing a stock take of things that need a bit of restoration. I did what was the last the live stream about Action Man officers? I brought out a lot of German officers and things like that. And I ended up, a lot of them, they've got goggles with elastic bands holding the goggles onto that. All the elastic was dry rotted, and I've got a whole stack of 3 mil thick black elastic, which is used a lot. Next day, I'm just repairing all these back on the shelf. Okay, they don't need to be touched for 5 years now. They're good to go. So,
yeah, it's what I do with the GI Joes as well. I use these thinner O-rings because the GI Joe plastic is starting to get real brittle. Waist pieces are breaking and things like that, increasingly more and more. And so for years now, I've always just gone with these thinner O-rings that are far more flexible. They hold the figure together just fine. It's not like if you pick the figure up, his legs start dangling or anything. But they're just less. They put a lot less stress on that internal bar or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And less stress on the hook and everything else. I swear by it at this point. I've heard horror stories of people who are using the standard size O-rings and they didn't pre-stretch them enough, and then they tried to put it, on the figure, and then the figure explodes, when they turn away. And I've heard all kinds of stuff. So I'm real careful with those. The He-Man ones, on the other hand, the He-Man figures, I have all but given up on vintage He-Man as far as keeping them maintained. I really have. Like I will be doing a video at some point showing my permanent retirement of the He-Man action figures, the vintage ones from the shelves, just going back into a bin. Too many of them, the legs are dry rotting out, and it's always like Russian roulette to see if you can put a new band in one without breaking the figure further or breaking the band or cutting up your knuckles trying to do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth my time to 40 minutes a figure on average just to try and see if that'll work. No, thanks.
Did you ever try to repair them before the fans were introducing the replacement bands? Because Toy Polloi had a method where he would get a small screw-in eyelet, kind of like the things you put on the back of a picture frame, and you would screw that into the top of each leg and then put an O-ring through. I've repaired a few figures like that. The new rubber band is an improvement on that method, but it is still an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it's an absolute nightmare. I made one attempt with a guy from the Snake Man group, or King Hiss's, not King Hiss, King Hiss's group, and that went just fine. And that first attempt gave me a lot of false confidence, because then I thought, ooh, well, I can repair our childhood Merman. And so I immediately went to try and repair Merman, and he's one of the original 1982 Mermen. And what they don't tell you is the space through the leg holes on early 1982 ones, which I only know this through visual experience, not from anything the internet has said, because I looked and I went, there's no way to put a new band through that. It's got extra plastic right there. I do not know how that band is supposed to stay in there, get through there. And I tried it, and the band broke. Well, then I had a He-Man that needed some help, with that. And I was working with him. The band didn't break. It was the edge of the waist piece that cracked off while I was trying to. So now he's a broken figure. It looks like he's lifting up this side of his underwear to show you more of his left butt. And you're just going, this is not worth it at this point. I love the way they looked when they were new. I'm over it now. I'm over it. I'm just going to do Origins and then be done with it, So
we have a super chat here from James Brewster. Thank you very much. Said, hey guys, thanks for a great topic. Have you guys talked about Star Team from Ideal Toys? Always loved those robots as a kid. The Night of Darkness. You're aware of what he's talking about, Michael? Those knockoff Star Wars action figures from Ideal, where I think they used kind of like the Captain Action body. It was late 70s. They came out with a guy called the Night of Darkness. He had a laser sword. He was all black with a cape. It was obviously
you're starting to jog my memory. I vaguely remember seeing pictures of those in my collecting days, but I've never run across them at toy shows. And I have not ever been, as you know, I'm big on fan work. I love independent toys. I love independent toy makers. I love all that stuff. But I've never been like a bootleg knockoff kind of guy in the vintage sense. Like I've never really been a guy who's like, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to collect those. They're very much of the 80s. Like the amount of 80s that radiates off of them is immeasurable, but like Galaxy Warriors and all that stuff. I have a few from childhood that we got at Showbiz Pizza with skee ball tickets and stuff. But as far as going out and trying to find them all and collect them and have Skull Man and all these guys, it's like, I'm just not in that direction. I'm just not. Because there's still so much to collect from the major lines that I don't have. I've still got superpowers figures I don't have, and I've still got some Joes I don't have, and I've got Captain Power figures I don't have, and there's a few GoBots I still need, and so yeah, like there's even 1 or 2 pieces from the Gabriel Zorro line that I'm still looking for. So I prioritize all those over the vintage knockoffs. Or I should say generic lines. As much as I love Leonard's The Core and my memory of it, I haven't gone after the vintage Leonard The Core stuff, which is too bad because they had some really cool stuff, but I just haven't done it.
Yeah. You have to make these choices. Like for me with the with Ideal's Star Team, I think it was called. I don't have any of the large size Kenner action figures from Star Wars.
Yeah.
If I was to go on the hunt, I would actually want to get the Kenner Darth Vader and the Kenner C-3PO as opposed to the Knight of Darkness. And they did a kind of a C-3PO character, which was a droid up to here, and then he had like a green reptile's head on. Very bizarre looking.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd much rather be getting the original Kenner Star Wars stuff. So
yeah, and so when I get extra money or whatever in my budget every month, and I have it to spend, I freely admit that I will spend it on independent toy projects that relate in some way to those things. So whether it's Stan Solo figures or Bobby Vala's Action Force. And I'm not trying to say that I'm a slave to brands necessarily, although I guess maybe I am on some level. But I guess there's like a point where I recognize that the idea is not as original as it could have been. So like, for example, there's a very obscure early 80s action figure line here called Dragon Riders of the Styx. And I've collected a few action figures from it. They're not bootlegs or knockoffs or spin-offs or inspired buys of anything else. And so I enjoy finding those when they're affordable, and kind of because I remember them, in stores. But Galaxy Warriors and this line that you're talking about, they're clearly trying to ape off of He-Man and Star Wars in a very overt way. And so I love my childhood one that is literally a He-Man body with a Tyrannosaurus Rex head with a mohawk. It's hilarious. I had it when I was a kid. I love it, but that's all I need to remind me of those lines. It's like, back when toys like this could be sold. And that's all I need. So
yeah, I'm not. There's a lot of knockoff Action Man stuff in the 70s. I can't. There's not many Action Man collectors kind of go after that type of thing anyway. But yeah. No, the Ideal Star Team is a esoteric footnote. If I could understand a Star Wars collector wanting to add that to the collection if Star Wars is the only vintage Star Wars is the only thing they collect, and then they've completed their run.
Yeah,
then you may go and get. You may want to. That's when people want to start getting into these Uze things and these foreign releases. But
yeah, that's a great example. I have no interest in Uze. I have no interest in Model Trem. I have no interest in any of those weird,
repros.
Bootlegs of Star Wars that were made behind the Iron Curtain, in the 80s. I just don't care. I know that people out there just worship at the altar of those and think they are the ultimate bragging rights to have those. And I'm just like, great, knock yourself out. You won't have me competing with you in the marketplace for them. Enjoy. Yeah.
You mentioned Valaverse Action Force just before. I don't know if you're aware of this, and you might regret learning this if you don't already know it. So when I placed my pre-order a couple of months ago, on the CrowdOx website. I wanted all of the core characters, so I pre-ordered the 6. Is it 6 core characters?
Yeah.
So yeah, Condor, Sergeant Slaughter, Steel Brigade, Kerek, Bone Collector, the Swarm.
Yeah.
Since then, I was like, I wouldn't mind some of those painted weapons packs and some of these other customizing bits. So I was speaking to Bobby. I'm like, so how do I go about ordering some of the additional weapons packs? And he's like, oh, go back to your original email from CrowdOx where you ordered the 6, and there's a link at the bottom for you to manage your pledge. And you can literally just go in there and just add one weapons pack to it. It's like $12. So I seem to go in every week and go, oh, I want another set of body armor. I think just yesterday I went in literally just to order like one set of body, like the Riot Gear body armor set, because I bought a couple of the generic troop builder figures as well, and I want to be able to customize them.
Right.
So I started off with this big pre-order purchase, and then over the last couple of months, I kind of go in each week and spend literally just another $20-$30 and buy 2 accessory sets or another loose figure, and I just keep adding to it. So
yeah, it sounds
Did
like
you know that?
I did not know that. I did not know you could do that, but it sounds like you're in the same trap that I'm in with these Blu-ray company sales, where I'll go in every few weeks and be like, oh, the March Madness sale is still going on. And all their Blu-rays are $11, and I'll get a few more, Cary Grant classics or whatever. I know how that feels. I know that phenomenon. That's why I was, I think I was telling you and Sal the other day that it's not the same thing as Valaverse, but it kind of is. I've thrown in all my chips with online purchasing now for Masters of the Universe Origins, because I'm just going to want all those. I'm all in, and I want to ensure that I get them all come, hook or crook. So I went and pre-ordered all this stuff that doesn't even have pictures yet on Big Bad Toy Store. It was the same kind of thing. It was like, well, I think I need to pre-order Wave 6 and Wave 5 now. And I need to pre-order these deluxe figures now that have no pictures yet. And I need to pre-order that Castle Grayskull. So I'm just going to pre-order everything in one big go. And then you just say to yourself, well, they're not going to charge my credit card until this stuff is out. So it won't feel like such a shock, even though the total staring me in the face is like, so yeah, I know what it's like. And I was talking to Bobby the other day too about it, about Action Force specifically. And I was telling him, you've got all these guys that I didn't realize you had. They're like generic troops in balaclavas that you can put all this gear on. And I'm going, now I'm struggling to determine in my mind what constitutes a complete run of Action Force in Valaverse. Do I need to get like 2 of these dudes and 2 of these guys, and how many armor packs do I need? And then I'm like, and then when my brain goes into overload like that, which it sometimes does on eBay as well, when I'm eBaying for a bunch of things, I just back away. My brain goes, too much overload, do nothing. And then it's like a fuse. It's like a fuse in a circuit breaker. I have like this fuse that breaks, and I just walk away. I haven't walked away from Action Force. I've walked away from trying to figure out all that peripheral stuff. And I've been like, so hopefully I'll figure it out and then, make a few purchases, but I just don't know. I literally don't know what I'm looking at this point with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I really understand what you're saying there, like trying to define, this channel has become somewhat of the, known as the Action Force channel. So I want to continue that on with this new line and do reviews of all these products. But I'm like, well, where does this line start and end? So what I've said in my head is, I will collect every key character that appears in the comics. So the first 6 that are coming out with the custom stuff. The can't remember what Bobby, there was, I think they're like Urban Trooper and Riot Trooper, something like that. But they come in, one's in all black, one's in kind of like tactical police blue, and one's in a urban black and grey camouflage.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided that my personal aesthetic preference is the black and grey camouflage figure.
Mm-hmm.
I've purchased 2 of those and some accessory sets. I'm probably going to get a 3rd so I can have a little mini squad.
Yeah.
To be able to show the audience an example of the way that you can customize with Valaverse. I don't need to go and get examples of every, because if I turn around and went, well, no, I need to get the black and the blue guy as well because they're troop builders, I would have to get 3 of each probably.
Right.
And yeah, so I've just sort of said to myself, get all of the key characters, the actual characters from the comics that come out, but then limit yourself to what you're going to do with the customizing, just enough to showcase in a video. So
yeah. I run into that problem a lot when it comes to collecting certain lines or even sublines within lines. You know, I have to just, if it's complex enough or deep enough or whatever, and I just go down a rabbit hole, the next thing I know, my brain just trips that circuit breaker and says, "You're done." And I'm like, walk away. And I just kind of go off and, dribble for a little while, and try and figure it out a few days later. Sometimes I don't even come back to it. Sometimes what was the line there was some modern line that I was going to try for, and then I just gave up. And then when I finally came back around to it, I can't remember what it was. It was already in secondhand prices. And I thought, well, forget it. That's why I've kept up with certain things. So through miracle of miracles, I was able to, even though I was years late to the party, I was able to get all of the character options TARDIS boxes that they've released since the beginning of the line.
Yeah.
So I have every single one. Some of them were exclusive to Forbidden Planet. Some of them were, mass release. But they're all different variants. And I've kept up with that because they've still continued to release those regularly throughout 2019, 2020, 2021. And they're always a new variant with a different figure inside. But I've caught up with those and I'm keeping up with those. So I'm always right there, to grab those. With the Star Wars Black Series, as you know, I'm very focused. It's like, I'm only doing Empire Strikes Back for the most part. The other stuff that interests me is very limited in scope. I did hear on Infinity Equation on Friday, they spilled the news. I'm sure you saw that there's a rumor that they're going to re-release the Rogue One characters with better faces, which I will go down that rabbit hole and rebuy those when that happens. But I'm not going into a lot of villains, a lot of prequel stuff. I'm not going into any of that other stuff in the Black Series. And the same thing with even like the Doctor Who stuff. I have a small group of Daleks. I don't need every Dalek that they've ever made in that line. I do not care. I do not want them all. I just want my TARDIS boxes and any major characters that come out, Doctors and Companions.
Yeah.
Masters of the Universe Origins, I'm all in on that. That was one of the ones that I should probably bring up. That the moment they released the photographs of G.I. Joe Classified, I went, done. Don't even need them. The whole thing, and I walked away from that whole line. And when I walk away from something like that, like I've said it many times, I don't get obsessed with logos and franchises. I do like them a lot. Obviously, I'm a fan of parts of many things in franchises, but I don't become enslaved to them materialistically. Like I can sleep at night knowing that I didn't buy any G.I. Joe Classifieds, or I can sleep at night knowing that, I didn't go in on the sail barge. Just because it's Return of the Jedi doesn't mean I have to have it. It's like, forget it. So it's a healthy mental exercise. Everybody should, really, work out that brain muscle of yours. Try it. Try walking away from a few things every now and then. It's healthy. So yeah.
I've got a few super chats here. So Wicked Person, this is a comment for you, Michael. He says, fan edit of The Hobbit is eminently watchable. Thank you.
Yeah, the Acorn Films edit of The Hobbit is really good. Glad you enjoyed it. It's really, really fun to watch. Too bad Jackson didn't do it that way. Yeah.
Chris Johnson, thank you very much. He says, don't worry, brother. I will cover all the things Action Force because he's Action Force AF, my man. Chris Johnson is, according to Bobby, the world's biggest Valorverse Action Force fan. So
yeah, I have seen him in the chat on Infinity Equation in the comments. Yeah, Chris is definitely yeah, he's I can't wait to see what he thinks of these figures when they come out. I cannot wait. You and him are the two guys I'm waiting on opinions from.
Yeah. So, okay. And a world made of cardboard, he said, with all the expensive high-end toys, do you see value in toys like Final Faction at Dollar Tree? On topic, they have a robot, an ACRM.
I actually have 2 complete runs of Final Faction, and I want to do I just got them, and I want to do a review of it soon because there is something irresistibly charming to a Gen X 80s kid about being able to get an action figure again for $1 and an action figure that's not total crap. Like they have unique artwork on each little card back. They have a file card on the back. The character actually comes with a unique sculpt and unique weapons, 5 points of articulation. They're very much, I'm not going to say, because inflation being what it is, I'm not going to say they're as good as Star Wars Kenner figures were back in the day. But if you consider that you're getting them for less than Star Wars action figures were at their very debut, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like it's and I know they have like an online cartoon. I'm glad they do. I don't care. I just like the fact that they're $1. You can get the whole range for like $20, and you have weapons packs for both the aliens and the human heroes. It looks kind of like Halo meets G.I. Joe.
Yep.
I think they're great. I know I'm already doing the review right now, but I think they're awesome, and I'm going to do a full review of them maybe next week or something like that. I love the idea that I'm buying a figure that doesn't have to, sell for $50 or something, or $20 at Walmart or whatever. I don't know.
I wonder if kids will actually get into it. It's hard these days with kids.
I got them laying right here. I'm gonna grab them.
Todd Bowman, thank you for the super chat. He says, I just managed to meet 2 local toy collectors near me during this live stream. Thanks.
Wow.
Do you mean like you've met each other in the chat? That's awesome.
I was standing in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven, and these guys just walked up to me. We were all watching the same live stream.
Yeah.
Like this guy. I mean, that dude's $1. He's $1. He's great. I'll zoom.
That's very cool.
I'll zoom in the camera on him for you. Here, I'll even bring up this girl character. I'll zoom in the camera.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, they're not bad.
No, for $1 each. Wow.
Yeah. I have no idea how this camera was positioned, so I'm guessing.
That's all right. We've been going for about an hour and 45 minutes, so
Okay.
we'll probably wrap it up. I wanted to thank you very much for your time, Michael. I will be doing a Patreon only live stream about 15 or 20 minutes after this. You're more than welcome to join me, but I'm also conscious of not taking up too much of your time.
Whatever you'd like me to do, man. I don't want to impose on you. I felt real weird because you were talking to me about, the robots thing, and you made the comment, you were like, oh, I was hoping they would choose the other 2 topics or whatever. And I just naturally said, well, I can set up a table and we'll have more bots on display. And then I sat back and I was like, oh no, did I just invite myself onto his stream? I was like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. Like I was just trying to be helpful. I wasn't trying to.
It's perfectly fine. I don't. I'd have you on every single live stream, but I'm conscious of chewing up. You have your own channel to run. chew up too much of your time, and vice versa. Like I messaged you and Melinda. It was morning for me, but
Sure.
I messaged you guys in the morning. I was like, oh, I can join you for the Patreon only live stream, and then I send a message, and I'm like, I've just invited myself into someone else.
Yeah, but I mean, we love you to death, so it's not you're practically family at this point. So it's not like you're inviting yourself. Like you're not Joe Rando 42, you know, or anything like that. We know who you are. So but that's what I kept telling myself. I was like, I was just trying to be helpful, and he knows that, and he knows that I'm not some piece of crap. At least I don't think he does. And so it's all good, and he won't think bad of me. So yeah, but
absolutely not. And I can tell you now, just looking at the number of people watching, I think this is the most popular live stream I've ever done. So thank you very much for being here. Obviously, people like robots. They like RetroBlasting. So there's people here in the audience that aren't normally on my live stream. So
I promoted this stream on the RetroBlasting Facebook and Twitter right before it started too, because that's just to anybody out there listening right now. We've all got to help each other in the social media space. If you know channels like Tony's that are independent and authentic, boost the signal. Let other people know who are into, the types of toys and collecting that Tony highlights. There's no channel that's too small. It's all about integrity and credibility. And that's always been my philosophy. So I'll get off my soapbox now. So.
I agree. So So I think we'll wrap it up there. I'm going to I'll be sending the Patreons a link. I also have another guest joining me for the Patreon only live stream. Michael, have you ever sat down on a video chat with Scuba Pete before?
I watched your entire pallet talk with Scuba Pete.
So he's jumping on the Patreon only live stream in about 20 minutes time. So I'll send you the invite. You're more than welcome to join us, and we'll just shoot the shit. Maybe you can talk about those Final Faction figures a bit or something.
Yeah. Melinda's telling me that I need to eat dinner real quick. How long does the stream go for? So we don't have like a Bruce Wayne dining table or anything. But how long do you guys normally do the Patreon live?
Michael, you go and eat dinner, and then you can come and jump in a little bit later on or something.
Okay, awesome.
I'll have a chat with Scuba. You go have dinner with your wife.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much for your time on here. And it goes for about the same as hour and a half, something like that.
But, perfect. That'll give me time to just eat a quick bite. And then what I'll do is I'll have the Final Faction figures kind of all up here, and we can talk about them. Yeah, cool.
Well, all right. Well, for those of you who aren't on our Patreon, you can head over Patreon/analog_toys, something like that. We have 4 different tiers, but literally for $1 a month, you get access to our Patreon only live stream, which will be going live in about 20 minutes. So thanks again, Michael. Thanks to everybody watching. And Patreon, stand by. I'll send you a link in a few minutes. Cheers. All right. Bye, guys.